Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rebel News live stream on this, a Thursday, November 4th, 2021. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, let me tell you about my co-host. You know, armed with a microphone, she hunts down stories. Armed with a compound bow, she hunts down wolverines. Yes, she is the Huntress Supreme, the she-devil with a sword, the Khaleesi of Northern Alberta. She is Sheila Gunn Reid. How you doing there, Sheila?
David, you're absolutely the best. You're the best. You're just the best. I'm doing great, David, and I got to tell you, you look great. Did you get a haircut? You look fantastic.
No, I think you just like this particular suit, you know, but I put a lot into that intro because I kept getting your weapon of choice confused in the past, Sheila, calling it a crossbow, and then you'd always, remind me it's a compound bow. By the way, are there wolverines in Alberta? I know you hunt things. I'm just guessing it's a wolverine.
There are wolverines in Alberta. I've never hunted one. I'd love to hunt one, but I just never had the opportunity. There are other, I love hunting nuisance predators, so that's my favorite.
How about cougars? Are there cougars in Alberta? I mean, that would be a real challenge, right?
Aside from myself, yes, there are cougars plaguing Alberta. There's a few.
I wasn't, it's funny. I remember seeing an article about that. 35 to 50.
I'm there.
Okay, you're
I'm right. I'm right in there.
50 to 65. The animal is a badger, and 65 and over, wolverine. So
I feel like I'm in badger country already. Like I feel like I'm. Yeah.
Are you in badger country?
I feel like it.
Sounds like a really bad CBC series from the 1950s, Badger Country, right? Kind of like
I would watch that.
Kind of like an extended hinterland who's who with some Boy Scouts wandering on sea. But anyways, we digress. So, Sheila, I think
boy, do we ever.
That was one heck of a tangerine there, folks. But Sheila, at this point, I guess you tell our wonderful viewers, and they are wonderful because some of them even donate money to us, which is so important to our livelihood because unlike the mainstream media, we don't pick your pocket at payday. We reach out to you, and if you like us, you give us some do-re-mi. And you know what? If you don't like us, you're still free to watch. I mean, what a deal. I mean, we're like the King Solomon of journalism, aren't we, Sheila? Yeah.
If you like us, give us money. If you don't like us, don't give us money. If you like us, you can also not give us money. It's, the ball's in your court. You know what? I just got off a Skype call with one of our Fight the Fines clients that we're helping in partnership with the Democracy Fund. And I want to point out in partnership with everybody at home. And the gratitude of these people for the donations to the work that we do. It might seem like, $5 here, $10 there, but the people who are on the receiving end, when you donate to one of our projects, it's enormous. And they're so overwhelmed. Some of them are stunned that there are people out there who don't know them who are supporting their fight. And so that's, again, a long tangerine, as David would say, to get to my point that we do truly have the best viewers in the world, because not only do they donate willingly to support, like what we're doing right now, whatever it is that we're doing right now, I lost track of it a little while ago, but all the other things that we do, we have the best viewers, just the best. It's heartwarming.
And Sheila, I want to just say something very quickly that it is so humbling to me that sometimes, often actually I'm out in the field covering things and people will come with cash money because they don't like or they don't know how to do digital donations or whatever, or they don't trust the system, whatever it is. And they say, can I give you this? And I say, absolutely. And I bring it back to the big boss man. He's got a drawer where we put these cash donations. It is so humbling. It is so honoring. And all I got to say is this. Has Rosemary Barton ever in her life been besieged by people trying to stuff a $50 or $100 bill in her hands? I bet never.
You know, when she's interviewing Justin Trudeau, you think, did he stick a 50 in her hand before this interview started? Did he? Maybe 100? For this tongue bath?
There's a punchline there somehow, but I dare not touch.
Don't. Okay, anyways, now we should tell everybody what we're doing before Mr. Head of Operations comes in and just yanks a cord out of the wall.
He did that once, didn't he, I think? Or was that
I
just
don't
a
know.
dream?
But I don't know. If it did happen, it happened to you. Anyway.
I know.
What we're doing here. This is a Rebel News daily live stream. We used to just host this thing on Friday, but there's so much news in the world, although you wouldn't know it if you watch the CBC, who for some reason during the pandemic decided, you know what, we don't need no local news coverage, even though all news truly during the pandemic is local. The restrictions are all local. It's local governments deciding to close businesses, make you wear a mask, decide on vax passports. So, you know, CBC thought that stuff was sort of untouchable, but we didn't. So we said, let's do the live stream, not just on Friday, but 5 work days. We'll sit down, we'll talk to our viewers, and we'll talk to each other, and we'll talk about the news of the day and whatever else tickles our fancy. However, we used to just be on YouTube, but YouTube, once Biden got elected, they didn't even have to try to pretend anymore. We knew they were liberal. We knew they were censorious. But once Biden got in charge, they just started nuking conservative channels, demonetizing them all over the place. Stephen Crowder deals with this, seems to be on a daily basis. AD's talking, but not to me. He's talking to David, but I can sort of hear it a little bit. It's distracting. Anyways, so we start our broadcast off on YouTube, and we stay there as long as we can, even though they've demonetized us, somewhat for spite, but also because we have 1.5 million viewers over there, and we don't want to abandon you. But there will come a time during today's broadcast where we end up talking about things that YouTube won't allow us to talk about. For example, we cannot question the advice of a local public health authority. That's blaspheming against health officials or whatever the rule is that YouTube says. So if we do that while we're on YouTube, they'll kill the channel. So what we'll do is we'll say goodbye to YouTube, but not goodbye to our YouTube viewers. And we'll ask you to migrate over to one of the other more free speechy, less censorious platforms that don't care about your politics. And those are Rumble, Super U, and Odyssey.
Oh, and Sheila, pardon the interruption, but
please do.
I was just told by Mr. Producer that Rumble is having some technical issues right now. So for today, at least, don't ramble into Rumble. Go to Odyssey and Super U. Continue.
So Odyssey, yes. And Odyssey and Super U, both of those platforms allow you to make a donation to us. And if you do that, someone will send me your comment in a chat, and I will read it on air, and David and I will do our best to respond to it. So that's the spiel. Take it away, David.
You know, and I just noticed something you said at the beginning. We don't need no local news coverage. It reminds me of the line from Pink Floyd's Another Brick in the Wall. We don't need no education. And I finally have a platform to say this. The very fact that you sang a lyric saying we don't need no education, that's a double negative. So yeah, I think you do need education, Pink Floyd, because it should be right? Am I right on this, Sheila?
How old is that song, and how are you just figuring that out now?
It just sprung to mind when you said we don't need no local news coverage, but I digress. Anyway, well, look at this. Good news. I think it's good news. Sheila, I bet you think it's good news. According to a government source, the flags, that would be the Canadian flags, are going to be raised next week. I guess that's in timing for Remembrance Day, which is precisely a week today, November the 11th. And you know, Sheila, I understand why they were lowered. I understand the cause, but they've been down since, I think, May, June, and I came across a column by our friend Lauren Gunter in The Sun yesterday, And I didn't realize, do you know, in this period from spring till next week, the Canadian flags have been lowered for a longer period than every dignitary in the last century whose deaths were marked by the flag going to half staff. Can you imagine that? In a century of honoring these people, that has been exceeded by the period that these flags have been lowered. And I think the fatal flaw in this strategy, letting it go on for months and months, it almost debases the idea of why you would lower a flag, Sheila, because right now the new normal is it's down, as in permanently. And I thought, the Legion, and, God bless the Legion, but they had made a statement earlier where they were saying for November 11th, we were going to raise the flag and then immediately bring it back down to half staff again. And I'm thinking, I guess this is the latest story, so maybe after they do that, obviously to honor the war dead and the veterans, maybe then they can bring it back up and we can go on. I mean, it's symbolic, but what we have to do in terms of truth and reconciliation is do tangible things, like clean drinking water for the dozens of reserves that don't have it, which to me is unspeakable given that Canada is a first world country in the 21st century, and we have the largest reserves of clean drinking water in the world. So this is more tangible and more meaningful to me, Sheila, than just leaving a flag at half staff forever.
How long have these flags been down? Like 6 months? 6 months.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of work to retrofit an aging water treatment facility on reserve in 6 months. But instead, Justin Trudeau said, we can't do that kind of stuff. Like, we can't do real world things. Let's just put the flags down. And look what we're doing in the interest of reconciliation, instead of doing real tangible things to make life better on reserve. I was talking to Robbie Picard the other day on my paywalled show, The Gun Show. And Robbie is Indigenous, and he's in Fort McMurray. And he was telling me something we all know, that literally every Indigenous band touched by Fort McMurray has a deal with an oil and gas company.
Yep.
And that is the reason why so often on reserve in Fort McMurray, the unemployment rates are lower than the general population in Alberta. It's because of their partnerships with industry. And he said it does nothing to further reconciliation if Justin Trudeau cares about that stuff. And he keeps telling us he does, because look, the flags are down, to go over to Glasgow, Scotland, to the UN Climate Summit and promise that he's going to put a hard cap on oil and gas emissions, because for Indigenous communities, that means your jobs are gone. And how is that reconciliation when we know that oil and gas and mining, largest employers of Indigenous people in Canada? But Justin Trudeau went there and said, climate rich people, I'm going to kill jobs back in Canada, without saying, well, those jobs are in Alberta, and the oil patch, it really is an Indigenous industry.
And Sheila, to my regret, during the debates in Ottawa back in September, when you had the BQ, the Liberals, the NDP, the Greens, they were all talking about two things. One is what we have to do to fight climate change, and two, reconciliation with Natives. And yet, part of their idea, their vision of fighting climate change, is to shut down the oil sands, and thereby taking away all those good, high-paying jobs in the energy sector, many of them being held by Natives. So how can you talk about giving Natives a deal that is more fair by making them unemployed in the energy sector. I wonder how they could have squared that, but as you know, it was very hard getting in the building and even getting onto the phone lines. And I guess you could even make the argument that Aaron O'Toole fits into that category too, doesn't he, Sheila?
Does.
Because when he becomes the Me Too guy on the campaign, as he did in the later stages, gun ban, Me Too. Carbon taxes, Me Too. Well, he fits into that as well. You can't have it both ways. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, every time Justin Trudeau says we're going to put a hard cap on oil and gas emissions, we're going to phase out these jobs, we're going to get to net zero by 2050, which senior economists at TD Economics say will cost up to 500,000 jobs in pursuit of that arbitrary goal. Every time he says that, you should be translating it in your head, putting Indigenous people out of work, because that's what it means. You stop oil and gas development in Fort McMurray, you kill the livelihoods, the hopes and dreams of Indigenous people. And Justin Trudeau literally won't shut up about reconciliation. It's an important thing, but everything he's saying does the opposite.
Yeah, and I think, as Mr. Gunter mentioned, since these flags have been at half-staff at a longer period of time than every dignitary recognized by that honor for a century, I think that what more can we do symbolically? I think we made the point by having these flags down for 6 months straight, and time to move on. And hopefully, when I say move on, tangible things. There we go. So there's the story. Canadian flags on federal building. And I hope that spills over to the private sector. The McDonald's near me, those flags are always at half-staff. And I hope, the private sector picks this up as well, Sheila.
I hope it spills over to the Legion. I remain a member of the Legion only so I can complain about how woke they've become and do it in good faith. I remain a member there because I think on some level they still support aging and ailing veterans, but they are so insufferably woke. They go along with all of this stuff, and they forget who they were created to serve, and they only serve to alienate people who actually support them. The woke don't care about veterans. We do.
You're 100% right. How perverse is it, Sheila, that the people running the Legion are so out of touch with their constituents? The people that actually went to war and put their lives on the line. But these soy boys and woke women, they know better, by subscribing to wokeism and, of course, cancel culture, political correctness. And yet the perversity, Sheila, is that so many Canadians put their lives on the line, so we didn't have to bend the knee to this kind of, totalitarianism, this kind of censorship. It's baffling that the Legion of all entities out there would be on the side of wokeism.
Well, and thank goodness, I think it was Ray Deer, that Indigenous veteran who's involved in the Legion in his community. He raised his own flag so at the Legion, which I thought was great, because he had basically had enough. And it's true. I mean, if you want to talk about dishonoring veterans, what about Indigenous veterans? Why is the flag down for them too?
No, I agree, and good for and that is exactly what I would think a strong-willed veteran would do. I'll raise my own damn flag. He would go, Gran Torino, Clint Eastwood, get off my lawn mode and do it himself. Yeah. Good for him.
Yeah, here's the tweet. Quebec and Canada have never told us, could you put that back up? Have never told us as Mohawks what to do. And so we put the flag back up when we felt it was the right time. Said Ray Deer, president of Royal Canadian Legion Branch 219. I think that's on Kennewaukee Reserve. We didn't want to have the flags lowered forever. Good for Ray. Good for Ray. And that kind of stuff is why I remain a member of the Legion, because there are guys like that inside the mechanism grinding it out for Canadian values. It's just that the people in charge don't seem to be.
And I should point out, Sheila, that I will be delivering our petition in terms of raising the flag on November 10th to the PMO's office in Ottawa, which somewhat shockingly, given who resides in the PMO's office now, Justin Trudeau, is literally across the street from the glorious war memorial in Ottawa that previously was desecrated by some loony enviro activists who put up all these tents for a sit-in. And as you recall, Sheila, I don't know if Mr. Producer can get to this, when a year ago, February, I went to that it was basically a tent city, a slum, and exposed the fact that nobody was residing in these tents and these little, shacks.
Always.
Yeah, it was only the head loony who told me to bugger off because she didn't want to talk to me. But I thought that's the idea. You're doing this outrageous stunt that you want coverage, you want to convey a message, but when you pose some impolite questions to them, they go all turtle on you. So anyways, for too many months, that was tolerated there. And you know what? I don't think that's it, Mr. Producer, because it happened in February. It was like a beautiful snow globe scenario. Snow was coming down. It was nighttime, and here I am unzipping tents, and nobody's home. Right? They're probably all staying at the what is it? The Chateau Frontenac. What's the Laurier? What's that beautiful hotel just down the street? That's what these activists like to do. They say, "Look how we're suffering from you," and then they go bugger off to some 5-star swank place where they spend the GoFundMe money. But I digress. Sheila, I see another story we have is, oh my goodness, we're just speaking of wokeism. Twitter bans law professor for saying Trudeau should be tarred and feathered. Here's the thing, and I don't care who is saying it and who the Prime Minister was, substitute Trudeau for Harper. This is a phrase. This is not a threat. Sheila, I liken it to, say, a boss saying to his department head, hey, whip your staff into shape. You've had 2 bad quarters in a row. He doesn't mean get a cat of 9 tails out and start whipping, their butts or their backs. It's a phrase. And anyone that can construe this as an incitement, to violence, that's beyond me, Sheila. What are your thoughts?
I'm of two minds here, and I'm really struggling to take the Christian approach because, boy, this guy deserves it. But on the flip side, it's very obviously a phrase. It's a turn of phrase. It doesn't mean that he's going to show up with a bucket of tar and a bunch of feathers. I feel like that probably seems like a lot of work for this guy to do that sort of stuff anyway. He's an academic, okay? Lifting buckets is more like my style. But I don't make the rules. I don't make the rules, friends. This is the kind of stuff people like this professor report to Twitter and have conservatives censored for all the time. All the time. I don't make the rules. These are the left's rules. How do they like them apples? How does it feel being forced to play by the rules you impose on everybody else? Kind of sucks, doesn't it? Now, I'm pro free speech. I don't think he should have been blocked, but there's like the spiteful side of me is like, how do you like it? How do you like it, buddy?
I share that line of thought too, Sheila, given this professor's ideology. But still, I don't want a world where everybody, left, right, center, moderate, is being canceled. I want a realm of free speech, free expression, free press, without some kind of censorious thug in Silicon Valley saying, off with your head. I'm sick of it, and I don't care who it happens to. And again, tar and feathered. Sheila, when was the last time in the world anyone was tarred and feathered? Is that even a thing anywhere?
I don't think anymore. But I mean, this is the exact stuff that university professors give their students a hard time for. They report people on Twitter and have other people's Twitter accounts canceled. He's previously come under fire for bashing the Quebec government, calling them white supremacist and racist. This guy just shoots his mouth off on Twitter all the time, which is fine. We all do it. I do it all the time. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm saying fun stuff over there all the time. But I'm like you. I don't want to live in a world where a turn of phrase on Twitter cancels you forever. I think let them say it. Let's engage in the free and liberal exchange of ideas. And you know what? I guess on some level, Twitter shows the world just how crazy university professors like this guy are. And so that's, I guess, one of the beauties about letting crazy people say crazy things on Twitter is you sort of see who they really are, and then you can judge accordingly. And if Twitter censors them, then you never have that opportunity. You just think, oh, these academics, they're super smart and super good and super benevolent. And then you're like, check out their Twitter account, and you're like, that's, I think, the helpful part of leaving this kind of stuff up.
You know what it reminds me of, Sheila? I believe it was late 2017, if my memory serves me well. Stephen LeDrew going on the Tucker Carlson show to argue that there is free speech in Canada. And then the day after gets suspended and then ultimately fired from his employer, Bell Media, for going on Tucker Carlson. And what I understand, it was not reported. I had some sources tip me off. It was Tucker, and he does it so well. He innocently asked LeDrew, because it was a story about how some teachers federation was adopting a 28 long acronym or initialgram for LGBTQ. Like it went on for 28 letters and trying to cover all the bases.
There's only 26. There's only 26 letters in the alphabet.
I know. Well, some are doubled. You know, there's QQ for, I think,
plus
queer and symbol. Queen.
David, okay.
I don't know. How do you keep up with this? But what the undoing of LeDrew was Tucker asked him very innocently, like he said, for example, two-spirited. What does that mean? And LeDrew said, well, Tucker, obviously that's somebody who's confused. They don't know if they're fish or fowl. And he made some other comparison too.
Oh, no.
Evidently, the 419 or 519 Church Street Community Hub in the gay village went ballistic, marched into Bell, and just like that, LeDrew was gone. I did a commentary on it, and LeDrew, who used to be the president of the Liberal Party of Canada, my final comment was simply a question. Hey, LeDrew, how you digging your liberalism now?
He was one of the last, somewhat sane ones left in the party, and they're like, oh, out you go. You're a little too grounded in reality. Out you go. Reading that article, whoever wrote that article for the National Post described Tucker Carlson as asking in bewilderment, and I thought that's the perfect description of generally Tucker Carlson interacting with liberals is just bewildered. Oh,
he does it so well, and that was so well phrased, Sheila, because that's how he said it. For example, two-spirited. What is that? And then he let LeDrew hang himself. But, oh my goodness. Well, more political correctness.
This is crazy.
In terms of gender, well, there's two. NDP calls for an end to gender-based dress code in the House of Commons. Sheila, good golly, what's this about?
I don't know. I'm under the impression that somebody in their caucus wants to show up in a dress when they are a mister. That's what I think. They're getting out in front of it. But you know what? We've got MPs, particularly in the Liberal Party, showing up buck naked on camera. So I don't think we should tinker with the dress code at all. I think just, it's about decorum. It's about professionalism. I say as I'm wearing a moderately wrinkly T-shirt. But we're paying these people a lot of money to go into the House of Commons, this institution of Canadian democracy and legislate on behalf of the rest of us. They're making, they've been selected by the people. Honor that and respect it and take it seriously. That's all I'm asking. And they just can't seem to.
100%, Sheila. I believe that if you are in a professional environment, you should dress professionally. Yeah, it means a little effort, but I can tell you, I know from people in the corporate world, one of the worst things to come around was casual Fridays. Because now, when it began, it was instead of a suit and a tie and a jacket, maybe a nice pair of slacks or jeans, a turtleneck, a polo shirt. That's okay. But then by the summer months, people are coming into the office in tank tops, flip-flops, and shorts. It's an office. It's not the beach, right? There's a time and place for everything. So really, is it that hard? And I noticed in the article that you were scrolling down, Sheila, the NDP's LGBTQ spokes thingy. There we are. Randall Garrison, the LGBTs. Where are we? It just disappeared. There we are. Spokesperson on LGBTQ issues. Why is this an LGBTQ issue, Sheila? If you're a gay man, if you're a lesbian woman, they dress professionally. How is this an affront to that community? I don't understand that.
I don't understand it either. I have no clue. And actually, it's easier for LGBTQ women who want to dress more masculine. We wear blazers. As women, men wear blazers. Women can wear a collared shirt with a tie, whatever. I just think it is so important to maintain decorum and respect for the institution. And pretty soon it's going to be like that lady from The Office who showed up wearing a tube top and her bottom was hanging out. It just becomes a slippery slope. I don't know.
And Mr. Producer, could you just put up something quickly, that article again? Because I saw something about Rabbi Burns Day exemptions in the House of Commons, I think, that allows kilts to be worn, I think. Let's see if we find that. I thought I saw it on there. We're gonna dig this up. Because the point I'm going to make, if there's an exemption on Rabbi Burns Day to wear a kilt, folks, being of Scottish heritage, when you wear a kilt, that is the highest degree of formality that you can do in Scotland. You wear that. There you go. Rare exceptions have been made to the rules for men, allowing them to wear a kilt on Rabbi Burns Day, for example. Sheila, what I'm saying is that if people have a vision of Scotland, and you saw this with the climate change fiasco conference that just happened, if you think you're going to, fly into Edinburgh or Glasgow and get off the plane and everyone's walking around in kilts. No, nothing's further from the truth. Go to a Scottish wedding, absolutely you'll see, the party wearing kilts. It's kind of like, a few years ago when Justin Trudeau embarrassed himself and our entire nation by going to India dressed up as a Bollywood performer, right? So the idea that they're saying, hey, look at the lax in the dress code standards by allowing a guy to wear a kilt. No, actually, that's going even further up the formal ladder, not going down, Sheila.
Yeah, I suppose it's like when you come to Alberta and you need to go to a wedding or a funeral and your father-in-law busts out his Wrangler Ranchers. Those are like the Wrangler dress pants that are kind of stretchy and polyester. Every old farmer or old rig hand owns the whole suit. It's black or gray or brown. And it's the same. It's our traditional dress here. It's the highest level of formality. But I can't help but think that the same people asking for this sort of accommodation, I guess that's what it is, I'm not sure, are usually the same people who are critical of conservative women on TV networks for showing their arms. Where they're the same ones who get uptight about that stuff.
That's a good point. But, Sheila, the other thing is with the economy the way it is, supply chain issues, inflation, the COVID-19 tyranny, mandatory vaccinations, everything. This is an issue we're talking about, what you're going to wear to the House of Commons? And how did this become an issue? Because... Yes, and how did this become an issue, Sheila? Because for several months, meetings were done virtually, and people were, I guess, showing up to their virtual meeting either in pajamas or, as you mentioned, in
naked
their birthday suit. What was the name of that guy again?
Oh, I forget. I remember, as it broke, and I'm like, I better write this up for the website. He was walking through the background like the Sasquatch in that famous footage, just swinging his arms, and it was crazy. Thank goodness didn't he do it twice?
Twice.
He did it twice. Yeah,
Can you
the
imagine?
second time his phone was there. That is not an accident. That's a pervert the second time. You're just being a pervert at this point. You are like the weirdo who used to have to go down to the bus stop wearing a trench coat, but now you can just do it on Zoom because you're in the House of Commons. Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm sure he supports casual dress days at the House of Commons, but I think he's out of politics, isn't he? Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what he's doing with his time now. Probably getting a job at a nudist resort, By the way, what is the appeal of a nudist? Sometimes on the highway, I see hey, 5 kilometers away, Happy Pines Family Nudist Resort. I don't want to see your family or my family nude. If anyone can give us insight on this, right? Look, friends out there, chat us if you're a nudist, but that's the stuff of nightmares, like being around total strangers, even in a bathing suit, being around total strangers, or worse still, people I know. That's horrific. If regular viewers of Rebel News know that I have only shown my shoulders, not even worn a tank top, but just worn a sleeveless t-shirt, maybe twice ever, and I think it was 38 degrees outside, and I was physically melting. I don't wear shorts, I don't wear dresses on camera. I don't know. It's just not for me. And so the idea that I might be somewhere where someone might know who I am completely naked is literally a bad dream. That's the stuff that I would wake up at night screaming and sweating. It doesn't make any sense. Why do people do this stuff? And that example you gave, the 38-degree day, was that at the Dead Sea in Israel, Sheila? Is that the incident you're talking about? Oh, no, that's the time that I declined to go in the Dead Sea because I knew too many people. There were too many people who knew me around. So many people swear by going into the Dead Sea. I went the year before. I got to be, and I know there's all kinds of minerals there that are healthy for you. My experience was, first of all, I ran like a road runner on the sand because even that was burning my feet. I get into this Dead Sea, and it's named that because there's not a single living thing that lives in the Dead Sea. Sheila, I got to be honest, I might be wrong, and maybe it is healthy, and maybe it's wonderful. I felt like I was this northern Canadian lobster being boiled alive. Right? Yeah. I could feel my ginger skin just peeling off in real time. And I got the hell out of that melting pot really quick. But I'm not knocking the Dead Sea, and no. all you people that want to float in it when you go to Israel, knock your socks out. But I found it one of the most unbearable experiences of my life. It doesn't help that when you get out, somebody runs up and rubs butter on the Canadian lobsters as they get out of the Dead Sea. Yeah, you know what? My advice, do it once to say you did it. Have the experience. And it's really strange because there's so much salt. You float above the water, up to here. It's not like you have to struggle to float. But I got out and I'm like, my lips are chapped, my hair is dry. You're covered in a layer of white film and residue. It was something else. But it's good for you, Sheila. Well, we must move on to Sheila. Can you believe this? Our good friend in Ottawa,
shot us an email about this early this morning. The CBC, folks, is referring to mothers-to-be as pregnant people. There you have it, right in the headline, and it just devolves from there. You know, I am of the understanding, Sheila, I'm not a biology major, but isn't it the women that give birth? And women are, by definition, female. Why is this pregnant people? Here's the other question, and please, somebody out there in the biosphere, educate me. How many men have given birth? I mean, and by that I mean, you know, biological men that I guess have transitioned into female. I'm sure maybe there's some slice and dice surgical procedure where it's possible, but why are women being referred to as people when this is strictly a woman's issue, Sheila?
Yeah, this is why we're not men. Like this, you guys do your part of all of this, and then we do the other part, and then we get together and we raise the children, being a mom and a dad. And I want to make a point here, because as I was reading this article, AD, if you could throw it back up, the doctor here is not buying into the garbage. So the doctor quoted in the article is not playing here, but the CBC is. If you wouldn't mind bringing that article back up so that we can read through it, because you'll note the change in language between the actual medical doctor treating pregnant women versus CBC reporting on it. So it says Canadians who are pregnant, so not Canadian women who are pregnant, are at higher risk for severe illness if they get COVID-19, yet many are still hesitating to get vaccinated, experts say. Always experts say. Sorry, go ahead, David.
Two things, Sheila. I wonder if Dr. Money will be called on the carpet to apologize for being so non-inclusive in her language, using the word woman as opposed to people. And, you know, it's almost a minor miracle, I would say, Sheila, that even though that's a direct attribution, that somebody at CBC didn't edit the copy. In other words, where the word woman appears, put in a word in parentheses saying people to make it politically correct. You know, so I guess there you have it. That's the Christmas miracle a little early, that they allowed the attribution, politically incorrect as it may be, to go in the original format.
It gets worse, because you read this and it is just pure wokeism garbage. So Dr. Deborah Money says it's terribly concerning. She's an obstetrics and gynecology professor, so she's kind of literally an expert for once that CBC consulted with, who knows women's bodies, and she specializes in reproductive infectious diseases at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. Pregnant women are under-vaccinated compared to the rest of the population, for sure. So Dr. Money, who works with Can COVID Preg, which tracks COVID-19 in pregnancies across the country. Now, CBC gets ridiculous here because they also early in the pandemic, data on the potential effects of COVID-19 on pregnant people and fetuses was limited. They're babies. You're having a baby. And pregnant people weren't included in clinical vaccine trials. Yeah, that's why we shouldn't probably be not vaccinating pregnant women. Anyways. Even the World Health Organization failed to provide clear advice on vaccination for pregnant people in the early days, which contributed to uncertainty among both pregnant people. This is getting annoying. This has got to be tough on the copy editors and primary care providers trying to give them the best medical advice on vaccination. They've just gone through and replaced every time where you would say pregnant women, expectant mothers, they write pregnant people. Well, that is in the CBC style guide, obviously. And you can't say babies. You have to say fetuses.
You know, Sheila.
Look at this. Pregnant people. We should do a count on how many times they say pregnant people in this article.
You know, Sheila.
Let's scroll down, AD, because I want to see if this next expert they cite, Dr.
Look at that. Wait a second. Do you see that? Look, Saskatchewan pregnant woman. Why isn't it Saskatchewan pregnant person? They broke their own rules, Sheila.
Oh. Yeah.
See,
Are
with
they
that
quoting
story
him?
link. Yeah. How do you like that?
Yeah.
Something slipped through.
The style guide has changed. Oh, God. You know, what a nightmare. Just writing women out of history, right? Where are the feminists? Where are the feminists to say, like, you know, it's kind of us that are doing this. The men have a very important role to do in all of this, but it's ladies having the babies.
Oh, Sheila, that is the point. And by the way, folks, we're going to be moving on in the minute ahead to Odyssey and Super U, because we're going to get into some COVID content, which we cannot present to you on YouTube. But I'll tell you, this is so disrespectful. Yeah. Oh, and Rumble is functioning now, too. So ramble into Rumble, you'll see.
Great.
But, you know, Sheila, this is so disrespectful to women, because it is women who are giving birth. In fact, I am amazed that women will put up with giving birth. I am of the opinion that if males had to give birth with our pain aversion kind of ways, we'd be facing our extinction event right now as a species, right? So the idea to broaden the tent to include half the planet who cannot give birth as birthers is outrageous. Put it another way, I mean, I remember when Lady Menzoid was giving birth. Oh my God, Sheila, the kicking, the screaming, the crying, and that was just at the point of conception. Anyway.
Oh, no.
Are we off YouTube, guys?
If we aren't, we are forever now.
Okay.